What we're seeking is the best educational solution to the problems that the institution has been established to deal with. These solutions are not the exclusive province of any one group within the institution. That is, the administrator may not be the individual who is best equipped to determine how students will react under a given set of circumstances. So it seems to me that what we need to do is establish structures through which students, administrators, faculty, in some instances the community, can relate themselves each to the other and can learn from one another. And I would regard this as discussion, as policy formulation, not as negotiation, which implies two fixed positions and an attempt to reach some center point. This, I think, is and then the idea of running the institution. Well, the power to fix policy is vested in the governing body. This is true by state law, and the governing body cannot delegate that authority. But the governing body operates on the basis of the recommendations that it receives. And it seems to me that the recommendations that governing bodies receive ought to be, at least in part, responsive to student needs and ought to take into consideration student viewpoints. That does not mean turning the institution over to the students, nor does it mean that everything that the students ask for ought to be given to them. It does mean that consideration will be given to the expression of students, and perhaps we'll take a little more pains to explain to them why we can't do something that they would like to have us do sometimes.
Mr. Peters, you've been concerned particularly with low-cost housing for people in Fort Worth. How did we get into the situation of having too little housing for people of the lower income levels?
Well, Jerry, I think perhaps the inflation that we've seen in the past 5 or 6, 7, 8 years has actually brought us into this situation we are now. It's just simply that there hadn't been, we haven't been able to create low-cost housing because there is no such thing as a low-cost house anymore if it's built according to good building practices.
Well, what can we do about it?
Well, of course, there is obviously the only way we can house the low-income people is by some form of subsidy. Now, where to get this subsidy, right now the only feasible place is under the federal housing program. And if we can avail ourselves of this program, then I think we can begin to pull ourselves out of this critical situation that we're in.